As awesome as it'd be to meet my maker at the hands of a Tyrannosaurus Rex, I still want to live. Curse all these dim-witted but powerful monsters with their tiny hands. Man, they just don't give up. And I thought T-Rexes were supposed to be scavengers.
What a predicament!
Oh, g'day. Didn't see you there. I'm Alex, and welcome to What a Predicament, a podcast that creepily leers at the predicaments of the modern day and age. Despite the prehistoric predicament I currently find myself in, I can't help think being chased by this dinosaur is somehow karma for the time I killed that dolphin. You guys like true crime podcasts, right? Then strap yourselves in and cast your mind back to January 2010. I was living in Whakatane, a New Zealand town I can legitimately say the name of and still have a clean rating in the iTunes store. It's the main urban centre in the eastern Bay of Plenty, and this particular Southern Hemisphere summer, that plenty included one playful bottlenose dolphin named Moko. Moko was one of them there solitary dolphins. Mainstream bottlenose dolphins live in groups, but every so often, for whatever reason, an individual will go off on their own, and sometimes those solo dolphins decide to hang out with humans rather than their own kind. Moko was one of those dolphins. The word would go round town, "Moko's down at such and such part of the beach, let's go!" And people of all ages would admire him and even have a splash around in the water. He'd come right up to them. I'll put up some photos of him playing on the podcast website and Instagram page. It was amazing. He'd play for hours with the floaty toys people would bring down, playing his own take on the game Fetch, and he'd do things like bring people gifts of seaweed or fish and push around kayaks and boogie boards through the water with his snout, like a kid with a Tonka truck. I envied his social skills, actually. I myself am not great around new people, coming as I do from a long line of British colonists. 1XX, the local radio station, had hourly Moko Watch updates. Moko not only made national news, but the story captured the hearts of people around the world. There's stories of him saving the lives of a pair of stranded pygmy sperm whales, guiding them back out to sea. I was lucky enough to get out in the water with him on multiple occasions to play fetch and just have a lovely cuddle. To this day, getting to be with Moko was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me, no offence to my fiancée. He was the biggest thing to hit the Eastern Bay since the Edgecombe earthquake. But, much like said quake, tragedy. Sadly, after only 6 months in the Bay of Plenty, Moko died in June 2010. The Bay of Plenty suddenly a little less plentiful. After following a boat out of Whakatane, his body was discovered some weeks later on a small island close to Tauranga. The exact cause of death is still unknown, but I have my suspicions it was me. Word was that human contact wasn't good for the dolphin's health. They could even get sick from the natural oils on our hands when we touched them, which I did. I needed to talk to an expert to get this potential marine mammalia side off my chest. Killing a beautiful creature has a way of gnawing away at your conscience. So I sat down with veterinarian and senior medic with Project Jonah, Lydia Udstrom, to talk about the important work Project Jonah does for marine wildlife and her personal experiences with Moko.
Project Jonah is this amazing charity that we have in New Zealand. So we are a organisation that takes volunteers and trains them up in how to respond in a marine mammal stranding situation. So as well as having an amazing education portfolio which we can put up to schools, that kind of stuff. So we're advocates for marine mammals in New Zealand, and what we do is we take people, and they can be from any walk of life, put them through a one-day training course. So we do a morning in the classroom and then an afternoon actually out on the beach with model life-size whales, which do look ridiculously lifelike. We get people running down the beach to come help. And we take people through what they've learned in the classroom and get them to have a go on these fake whales. And then once people have gone through that, we go on to a call-out roster for strandings anywhere in the country. So when just this year we had the largest pilot whale stranding we've had in 100 years down on Farewell Spit. So we had between 650 and 750 pilot whales stranded. And in that kind of situation, it's really important to have volunteers, to have people that know and are a little bit familiar with what they need to do. So we teach people how to approach these animals, what to do in a situation when they're up on the beach, and then you need to keep them cool and calm and comfortable and just keep them as well as possible until that water comes back. And then we teach them as well how to go through the process of getting them back into the water and hopefully back out as a pod and back out into the ocean where they belong.
When did you first hear about Moko? What's your connection to him?
So I heard about Moko fairly early on. So when he hadn't been around for that long, one Christmas I think it was, they put out a picture of him in the local newspaper and had a look at that and went, that's a pretty amazing animal. That would be something pretty special to see and be involved in.
How far did you travel to go see him?
So I went, I didn't actually go right away, but a couple of years later, so in 2009, I was in Napier doing some work experience there, and that was only a couple of hours away from Maher, and I figured, right, I'm this close, let's go see this dolphin and see kind of what this fuss is all about, and kind of the rest is history. I think I spent the next as many weekends as possible going up to visit and spend time with this incredible animal that seemed to want to spend time with people.
Yeah, so you managed to get out in the water with him quite a bit?
Yeah, so it was one of those weird things. You kind of go not really knowing what to expect, what their approach is going to be, what they're going to think. And ended up the first day we were there, he was out with a little group of people playing fetch with a stick. So they were just throwing the stick around for him, and we'd just walked into the water, probably about knee deep in the water. And all of a sudden there he was right next to you, and actually in that case leaning right up against me. I'm kind of going, what do I do? Do you touch them? Surely you shouldn't really touch this wild animal. But he chose to kind of lean over and touch me. I went, okay, we'll go from there.
Was it usually quite crowded when you were there? I know sometimes there'd be...
Yeah, it depended. There were some really busy times. So Maher is a stunningly beautiful part of the country, and they have a lot of tourists, so they have a lot of people that go up and visit, and a lot of holiday homes, so particularly school holidays, those kind of things seemed like really, really busy times. And he would come and go a bit within that, so some days you'd be out there and there'd be masses of people and he'd be in still keen to play, and other days he would just seem, if there were too many people, that'd be it, and he'd disappear off. When he moved up around to Whakataane, he again drew in the crowds. You could walk to the top of the hill and you could see this crowd of people and you knew he was there. But again, he would move around within those people, and when it got too busy, he tended to go across the river and at that stage and over to a sandbank on the other side. So he had his little spots that he could also get away from people when he so wished.
I know in the 50s there was the famous story of Opo. How common are the friendly solo dolphins?
Yeah, sure. So here in New Zealand, we seem to be pretty special. There's about 90 solitary dolphins known of worldwide. 14 of them have actually been in New Zealand, and Opo was surely the most famous of those, and she was the one I grew up hearing stories about and reading stories of and going, that would be incredible. Imagine if that were to happen again. So we were just, I guess, very blessed and very fortunate in that we did get another chance. And Opo's story ended really sadly. She wasn't around for long, and there's still controversy over what actually caused her death. She died the night after that actually passed a law in Parliament to protect her. So I think we did better with Moko. He was around for almost 2.5 years, but again, sadly, he's one of those ones that has died young, and it's really hard to know exactly why.
Well, yeah, what was the official line on how his story came to an end?
So I guess he spent about 5 months from memory in Whakatane, and then from there we've followed a boat up around the coast to Tauranga, which we were really, really worried about. It's a really busy port, it's a lot of people, there are a lot of big ships and boats coming and going in there, and he only ended up staying, I think, about 2 days he was seen in that area, and then he vanished. And it was a couple of weeks before sort of any word was heard again, where they found his body washed up on an island just offshore. And unfortunately, with marine mammals, when they do die, they actually start to break down in the environment really quickly. So his body was at the point that it got sent for post-mortem through the specialists at Massey University down in Palmerston North, and they had a really good look at him, but they couldn't determine a cause of death. So they couldn't see any signs of trauma, they couldn't see any signs of nets or anything that would indicate something like that, but they also couldn't work out what he did die from. So unfortunately he's one of those unknown,
You sort of mentioned it before, you had some concerns about touching him. That was one of the things that was going around, was the idea that maybe, I don't know, even the oils that are naturally on your skin isn't good for them. They're not, to them it's like a foreign contaminant sort of thing. And I was worried that somehow by palling around with him and, giving him a nice pat, that I personally, as well as everyone else who flocked to see him, may have somehow contributed to sort of ill health.
So that's always one of the really major concerns with these guys. So they do have incredibly delicate skin. Their skin rubs off really easily. That can expose them to different diseases, and they're not used to the diseases that we as humans have. So potentially there is that concern that you could pass something to them, but there's also a very real concern that they can actually pass something back to you. He's a wild animal. He has his own bacteria and the own things that are in his body, and so things like actually us breathing in the exhalation when they blow out of their blowhole is actually dangerous to us. So it's one of those ones that goes both ways, and I guess the biggest thing is the more we encourage them and spend time with them, the closer they'll come to humans, the more time they're going to spend potentially in contaminated harbours, those kind of things. There's a whole lot of flow-on effects which you get, and it's really hard because it's really natural. You have this incredible animal that seems to be seeking out attention and wanting to interact and wanting to spend time with you, and people naturally flock to them. I was one of those ones that went and visited him, but I said is not necessarily that great on them, so it's that hard balance.
It's like my old flatmate that I lived with at the time, he's got a photo of me, and I just, to pose for the photo, we literally had my arm around him like you would with your best mate or whatever around us, sort of, and I was worried that could somehow show up in a court of law as evidence.
Yeah, so I guess here in New Zealand, all marine mammals are protected by law. They fall under the Department of Doc portfolio. They're the ones in charge of supervising and making sure that everything's as it should be on there. The problem was that he broke all the rules. So yes, if this was a normal dolphin and people were doing these kind of things, they were grabbing them, they were handling them, they were touching them, that could be considered an offence under the Marine Mammals Act. But as I said, if they were to go down that route and prosecute every single person that had swum with or touched him, they were going to have thousands of people they were going to have to prosecute. So we have these laws in place, and they're incredibly important, and we need them to protect our animals. We have a lot of them that are in not great shape. We've got the most endangered dolphin species in the world with our Maui's dolphins. So we need these laws in place, but it is really hard when you get someone like Moko and they break all the rules and they seem to be the ones coming to us. The other thing that people often didn't appreciate is just how powerful he was. So he was a 3 metre long, just solid piece of muscle. And so the biggest problem with photos and things like that is if people knew him well and if he knew them well and he was really comfortable with them, absolutely that kind of stuff could happen. But if someone he didn't know was to come in and try and do the same thing, there's a very real risk that they would be rammed or hit by a fluke. And these dolphins can very much injure and severely hurt a human just because they roughhouse that I guess their way of interacting as part of a pod is that they will hit each other with flukes, or they'll hit each other with their beaks, sometimes even rake them with their teeth, and that's just a normal dominance behaviour. But when that translates to people, we get ourselves very, very seriously hurt.
Obviously, the people who would go up and play with him wouldn't want anything to happen to him. Everyone was there because they loved him. So for friendly dolphin fans in the future, what advice could you give on how to interact and behave around the dolphins, especially when they seem to want to play with you?
So there's a few really simple rules we try and go for. So first of all, don't overcrowd them. Never ever surround them, never block their escape. So always make sure they have a path where they could get back out to deep water if they were feeling uncomfortable. Resting and feeding times are really crucial. So with Moko, he would have some buoys that he would quite clearly go to and rest at. And if people then swam out to him or tried to visit him out there, then they were breaking that routine, breaking that rhythm, and that deteriorates their health. That has flow-on effects just from them not getting enough rest. Biggest thing is never, ever, ever pull on their flippers or their fins. So you see in shows of captive dolphins, people riding and holding onto fins and things like that, that's actually like someone yanking on your arm, and they can be dislocated quite easily if you're not gentle enough. And stay well away from that tail. So the tail is the most dangerous part of any of these species. And if one really hard hit with that tail, and you can be really badly injured. And then the other thing is, don't encourage them to play with toys or feed them. So if we feed them, we reduce their drive to hunt. If we play with lots of toys, then they can damage their skin, it can damage their teeth. Moko in particular had damaged teeth, we think, from chewing on anchor chains. So they potentially were part of his cause of death, and that breaking of his teeth could let bacteria into his body. And as they get used to these toys and these foreign human things, they can end up then going on to play, with anchor lines and fishing buoys and those kind of things, which are more dangerous to them. And they also can get incredibly possessive. I don't know if you ever saw, but he was quite well known for stealing things like boogie boards off of people and disappearing off with them.
What are they called? The noodles.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it was that hard thing of the people he knew well, and you could play with him with those, but he would very much come and tip kids off and steal those kind of boards, and particularly if people are relying on those to be swimming, then people could get in real trouble really fast. And then if you do happen to be in a boat, this one goes for any marine mammal, don't ever go around in front of them, so never circle them, never come on head on into a pod, into a group of animals, always come along from the side. You keep your course, you go in a line kind of parallel to them, and if they want to come to you, let them, but don't ever try to go to them.
On the topic of some of the dangers of dolphins, there's a song named Rolling Thunder from Albanian-American rap singer Action Bronson. And it has the lyric, I trained a dolphin to let the slammer off like Dolph Lundgren. Is there any physiological precedent of dolphins operating firearms in the style of an 80s action movie star?
I must confess I am unaware of any such dolphin. However, there are Navy-trained dolphins, and there were rumours, I believe, of dolphins in Russia being trained to actually kill divers.
Well, not just to set off
stuff, but actually the rumour is, I don't know that it's been confirmed, but rumour that, they were trained to kill.
Amazing, because the one thing everyone knows about dolphins is how intelligent they are. Is it true? Are they supposed to be the smartest creature other than human beings? Is that true?
Some people would contend that they're even smarter than humans. So intelligence is a really hard scale to put to a species, particularly a species that lives in water while we're on land. But all the evidence shows to me that these are highly intelligent animals. They can problem solve. They seem to be aware of who they are, aware of themselves in mirrors, those kind of things. So, it's hard to put on an absolute scale, but certainly do not underestimate them.
They have some sort of language, like definable language, right?
Absolutely. So the more we're managing to look into these kind of things. They're showing that dolphins within a pod have their own name, they have their own signature whistle that they use to talk to each other. Without a doubt, they seem to have structure, they seem to be able to understand sentence structure and command structures from us and do things in order, that kind of stuff. So yes, they, again, very different to ours, but do seem to have relatively advanced language.
So what do you know now, post after your experience with Moko, that you didn't know before about dolphins?
The thing that has surprised me the most, which shouldn't have, is just how incredibly individual these animals are. So through this, we got talking a lot to a lady who's in Ireland, and they've got a solo-friendly dolphin over there. And it was just really fascinating talking to her about the different behaviours and what was similar and what was different. So this one in Ireland, she's got very much her people that she's used to swimming with, that she swims with all the time, and she likes those guys. Other people trying into the water, and she's got to the point she's just had enough, so she will actually chase other people out of the water. Whereas Moko, whether he was just younger and a little bit more naive, he just seemed to love everybody. He seemed to take everybody on. I guess it fascinates me just, again, how different they are, just between them.
As individuals?
Yeah.
And do you have any final dolphin facts or trivia or anything that you'd like to share while we're on the topic?
I guess going back to the way that they sleep, the way that they rest, I think one of the most fascinating things about these guys is they never completely shut off their brain and sleep like we do. So because they breathe air, because they are mammals, they have to always be aware of where the surface is and come up to breathe. But they also need to always be on alert because they are predated upon by other animals. So these guys actually sleep half of their brain at a time, and the most gorgeous thing I think is that their eye on the side that they're asleep on will shut. So with Moko, he would occasionally come over and sleep next to a boat, next to people that he really knew really, really well, and you could go in and one eye would be open, you could see one eye open, but he was clearly sleeping with his other eye shut, and then they'll swap. So they'll swap over to the other side, let the other side have a sleep, and keep the right side of the brain open again.
It's adorable.
It's amazing, just incredible resting and sleeping in the ocean.
Cool. And that's pretty much it. Was there any other things you wanted to leave people with, a final message or anything you want people to take away?
That's the biggest thing with these guys, if you ever are lucky enough to come across a dolphin like Moko again, is just being very aware and very respectful of him, or her, of their space, of their time, and not pushing yourself onto them. Just be there, be present, be part of that event, but don't feel like you have to necessarily go to them, grab them, do that kind of stuff. If you wait, if you're quiet and watch, they'll come to you. That's the more special part, is instead of chasing after them, when you just stand and wait and you can see them actually come and choose to come to you, that's just incredible.
It's like a real-life Disney movie.
It really is, yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. Thanks so much for making the trip.
No worries. You're very welcome.
Outdam spot. I know that I'll never forget my time with Moko, and anyone lucky enough to get to share in that experience will also carry forever in their hearts that one beautiful summer with Moko. And Moko, if you're up there somewhere and you listen to the podcast, I just wanted to say, if me getting my grubby hands all up on you in any way contributed to your demise, I'm sorry. I swear it wasn't on purpose. Thanks for everything, Moko, and thanks to you for listening. Thanks to Lydia and Louisa from Project Jonah. Donate to the cause or find other ways you can help our finned friends over at projectjonah.org.nz. This is it for Season 2 of the podcast. There will be a Season 3 in the future. To make sure you can catch that when it comes out, you could always, hypothetically, subscribe to What a Predicament via whatever podcast provider you usually use, Apple Podcasts or iTunes or Podcast Addict or Stitcher or whatever. Alternatively, Follow the Instagram page at What a Cat Productions, where, as well as keeping you updated, I'll also be posting pictures of my old friend Moko. Another way to not miss new episodes would be to make whatacat.co.nz your homepage. You'll see it every day, and you'll be pleasantly surprised one day when you see episode 21 is up, or heck, you could get a memento-style tattoo saying, remember to check if there's a new What a Predicament out, but get it backwards so you can read it in the mirror. And speaking of memento, Easter egg, listen to all 20 episodes of What a Predicament in reverse order for a real head-scratcher. The opening theme music for What a Predicament, for the previous couple of seasons at least, has been a derivative of The Little Hotel of Horrors by Decamentarium, licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 4.0. This track here is Phil by Sci-Heart, marinating in more creative juice in its 9 minutes than I managed to do with 20 episodes of a podcast. But whatever, he never got to play with the Dolphin. As a season finale treat, I'll play the rest of Phil here in its entirety. Talk to you later. That's right. I almost forgot I'm being chased by a T-Rex. And there's a sheer cliff face coming up. What do I do? Do I leap or face the dinosaur? I could try and make friends with it, like Moko, but then look how that turned out. No, I've got to jump. Here goes. Oh, what do you know? I managed to catch hold of this convenient tree branch sticking out of the side of the cliff. I can't pull myself up. I guess I'll just end the season by hanging here, at the top of a cliff, my fate unknowable. There should really be an expression for this specific situation. Oh, yeah, duh, there is. What a predicament!